Kalimera, my friends. My name is Pierce, and this is my channel, Tales from the Road. Thanks so much for stopping by. As you of course clicked on this video, we're going to be talking about the beautiful Mediterranean nation of Greece today. This is an amazing country, one of the tourist highlights of the world, and a country that has so much history and so much cultural value to explore. Today, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know before you go, in order to have an absolutely authentic, unique, and beautiful time in a country I love so much. So, let's get into the content. Come along. So before we get into the practical information, I like to give you guys general context about the country that you're visiting. So let's start with a country overview. Starting with the geography, I like to break Greece up into three main regions. The first region is the northern region, which is the southern tip of the Balkan Peninsula. This is connected to, of course, Albania, northern Macedonia, and Bulgaria, so you get influences from those countries, as well as being home to Athens, which is the biggest city in Greece, home to the Acropolis, and it holds nearly half of all of Greece's population. So it's a very important ancient and modern center for Greece. The second part is the Peloponnese Peninsula, which I like to call the little bottom hand of Greece. This peninsula is home to many ancient city-states such as Corinth and Sparta, to large Greek ruins such as Nafplio, which has one of the largest colosseums in the world, and is more rural and mountainous than the northern part of Greece, so it's a place where you can experience a little bit more of the, let's say, the normal everyday life of the average Greek person. And the last region being the island region. Starting with Crete, one of the most historic and significant islands in the chain, as well as many other islands that many tourists like to visit, such as Santorini and Mykonos. Many of these people connect to these islands via ferry from the mainland, so getting there is not too complicated. Or you can fly directly, your choice. Historically speaking, Greece is very interesting, and I like to split it up into four main historical eras. The first historical period being ancient Greece, the time of rival city-states, of Athens, of Sparta, of amphitheaters and columns and temples, as well as Greek mythology, Zeus, Hera, and the like. This time really reinforces the modern day interpretation of Greek identity and is very important for the national sort of feeling of the country. The second period is the Roman Empire times, in which Greece was basically absorbed into the Eastern Roman Empire for nearly 1,000 years. This is significant because this is the time where Greek mythology kind of fell out of favor for Orthodox Christianity, which is now Greece's largest religion. After the fall of the Roman Empire, Greece was absorbed into the Ottoman Empire for nearly 400 years. This is sort of a dark mark on Greek cultural heritage, as the Ottomans were very against Greek identity and Greek nationalism, and was the inspiration for the modern Greek state that exists today. This also has a lot of ethnic and political turmoil, especially with modern day Turkey, as Greeks and Turks still have a lot of political issues. During this time period, you can see the Ottomanization of Greece, as much of the food and culture from the Ottoman Empire spilled over into Greece. And if you travel to Turkey and to Greece, you can see a lot of similarities in the modern states today. The last part is the modern state of Greece, which was first a kingdom and then a democracy. The country today is now a staple country that people visit when they come to Europe, as well as one of the original member nation states of the European Union. It's part of the ever-changing continental identity of Europe, and one of the most famous and vital countries for historic precedent in the region. So now you guys know a little bit about Greece. Let's get into the practical side so you have an awesome and authentic trip in an otherwise very touristy country. So let's start off with visas. If you're an American, you get 90 days in Greece. The one thing to remember is that Greece is in the Schengen zone, which is the free movement zone amongst European Union Schengen countries. So if you spend 45 days in Germany, that means you only have 45 days to spend in Greece. This makes it kind of hard to travel around Europe, so you need to, count your days depending on how long a trip you want to take. If you're going directly to Greece and leaving Greece and you're only going for a couple weeks, just show up with an American passport and you're in. Money. Greece uses the euro, which is almost one-to-one with the United States dollar right now. It's very easy to get money, to withdraw money via ATMs, and they have large national banks that are backed by the European Union, so withdrawing, exchanging is all very easy. I would recommend once you get into Greece, especially in the airports, don't exchange your money in the airports and don't use the ATMs there. See if you can exchange euros before you come, because the rates in airports are always very bad, and because this is a touristy country, sometimes they really take advantage of tourists in this sort of sense. So always come prepared with money, and then if you need to go to an ATM in country, that's totally fine, just don't do it at the airport. Internet and SIM card. The internet in Greece, of course, as it is part of the European Union and a modern European country, is quite good. Getting a SIM card is also quite easy. There are many policies that you can get from either Vodafone or Cosmote or one of the other local providers of SIM cards. I found that their plans were very strange and you needed to update them every 15 to 20 days as opposed to having a month plan. It totally depends what's available at the time, but I found you could get a good amount of internet for a pretty reasonable amount of money. The other thing is that if you're staying in Athens, some of the buildings are quite old, so some of the buildings don't have fiber optic cables for internet connection. So be aware that the internet in some houses in Athens is up to US speed, but in other houses with no fiber optic cables, the internet can sometimes be quite bad. So depends on you, but modern European country, internet is pretty good. Transportation. Greece is a big country. It doesn't look so big on the map, but it definitely takes some time to get around. And it's quite mountainous, so sometimes driving times can be a bit long. They have domestic flights and you can fly to major airports like Thessaloniki in the north, Athens in the center, and of course you can get to the islands. They each, some of them have their own airports, such as Crete, the biggest one being Heraklion. Getting between Greek cities is pretty easy. Each place has a bus station. Buses aren't too expensive and they go all over the country. Just be sure to check the bus schedule, because sometimes the bus schedules are written only in the Greek alphabet, which is obviously unreadable unless you have learned ancient Greek in high school or something. Sometimes they have things online you can check, or make sure to go to the bus station in advance. That's also quite helpful. Getting to the islands from mainland Greece, once you're already there, is normally quite easy. From Athens specifically, you can take many different ferries to many of the larger islands. And then once you're on a larger island, then you can go to a smaller island from there, as they're all interconnected by the ferries. Be aware that there are high season and low season travel sort of prices. And this also goes for museums and archaeological sites as well. So I'm pretty sure if you go between March and November, that's the high season. And then obviously during the winter, the colder months, it's the low season. So ferries during the high season are quite expensive, as well as, for example, if you visit the Acropolis in Athens, something like $10 more expensive than it would be if you visited during the low season. I found the Greek buses to run on time, taxis to not be particularly sketchy, and getting around the country to be quite easy in general. Safety. I thought safety and scams in Greece were pretty reasonable. I think in any major city in Europe, you have to be aware of pickpockets, you have to be aware of simple scams where sometimes people put things in front of you and you actually accidentally step on it and have to pay them. Or sort of awkward tourist scams where sometimes they'll give you a rose and then you have to pay for the rose that you took even though you don't want it. These are all very common in any major city in Europe, so it's just something to be aware of. As far as the majority of the country goes, I would say Athens is the city that you have to be the most careful in, because they might have the most unsavory types of people looking to steal from tourists, people looking to overcharge tourists. So make sure where you walk around during the city at night, because there are a reasonable amount of drug addicts that do live in certain parts of the streets in Athens, just as any other major city in the world, as well as restaurants that really like overcharging tourists or charging tourists extra fees that they didn't know. What I always say is, instead of eating in the city center, sometimes walk a little bit outside the city center. You'll get a better deal, you'll get a more authentic experience, and you won't have to deal with feeling that you've been overcharged for something, or getting food that you didn't order and being put in that weird position with a foreign person who doesn't speak English very well. They like to put foreigners in this uncomfortable situation because you'll normally just pay your way out of it. So getting around Greece with regards to the language actually isn't so bad. Obviously, Greek people speak Greek, and that's the main language of the country. Because it's so touristy, they have English almost everywhere, as well as French, German, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese or Japanese, because of the amount of tourists that they do get. The one problem is if you go to more rural Greece, it might be helpful to learn how to read the Greek letters, or at least half of them, so you can kind of understand what you're looking at, because in the smaller cities, they don't speak English that well, and they don't necessarily transliterate the, like let's say a restaurant menu from the Greek language into English and to other languages as well. This is really an issue because of the alphabet. If you're just left with Greek, the chance that you'll be able to read it is very low, as I said earlier. Greek people are very friendly, and when you use their local language to greet them, they feel like you've taken a little step to get to know the country, and with so many tourists, that does go a long way. So here are a couple helpful phrases that you can use on your next trip to Greece. So to say good day or good morning, you say kalimera, kalimera. And to say good evening, you say kalispera, kalispera, kalimera, kalimera, kalispera, kalispera. It's very nice. To say thank you, another important word, you say efharisto, efharisto. If you learn those two phrases, at least people can feel like you tried. And that's what's important when you travel. Now let's talk Greek food. Because I'm a big foodie, I will share with you some of my favorite dishes and some things you definitely need to try on your time in Greece. I think most people, when they think of Greek food, they think of spanakopita, which is that spinach cake with the phyllo top, or something like moussaka, which is an eggplant dish with meat with a nice bechamel sauce. You can certainly find those all over Greece, but Greek food is very diverse and there's so much more besides the average dishes that you can find in any Greek cafe in the United States. Some of my favorite foods that you can find in Greece include some desserts like loukoumades or portokalakopita. The first being sort of a shortbread cookie covered in powdered sugar, very, very good with a nice strong Greek coffee. The second being a orange cake with orange syrup. It's very luscious and absolutely delicious. If you can get your hands on a piece, that's fantastic. My favorite dish in Greece might have been something called paidakia. Paidakia is roasted lamb chops that you can get with nice lemon, some potatoes, and a nice Greek salad. Easily one of the best things maybe in the world for me. You can see the paidakia grills. They have a big fire in the middle, and then they put sort of sticks over the top with the lamb racks on the side, so they get this nice crispy grilled flavor, real flames, real fire, really about as good as it gets. Greece has a very mixed food culture also because it's really in the start of where the Silk Road kind of went into Europe, as well as being part of the Ottoman Empire, the Roman Empire, and being a seafaring country for thousands of years. Lots of influence from lots of places all around the world. And finally, to end this video, I'm gonna give you my top 5 places you should visit on your next trip to Greece. Number 1, go to the island of Crete. Crete is an amazing place. It's so unique. It is very touristy, but it still retains that sort of authentic feeling that I thought it definitely wouldn't have. It's got beautiful cities like Chania and Rhythmno, and one of the oldest ruin sites from ancient humans in the entire planet. It's a spot, it's a gem, you gotta go. Number 2, you've got to go on some sort of ferry trip in Greece. Taking a ferry, cruising through the Mediterranean is simply spectacular. The blue skies, the blue sea, the amazing sights, the great beaches, it's something you've got to do. Number 3 is you need to spend some time in Athens. Athens is of course a major European city, but it retains Greece's newfound modern identity. It's interesting to see how Greek people are interpreting their old culture and building new culture at the same time. It's the best place to meet young Greek people, to go out, to party, to experience some of Greece's best restaurants, and to find hidden gems amongst a city of so much action. Number 4 would be going to the Peloponnese. The Peloponnese is known for its beautiful mountain roads, its beautiful old cities, and its epic Greek ruins. I would of course recommend any Greek ruins in Greece, but some absolutely excellent ones are Naphtali, which is in the northeastern part of the Peloponnese, Corinth, the old city-state. There's some really nice and epic ruins, and in the south you'll find lots of ruins near the city of Sparta. Number 5 would be meeting some Greek people. This is kind of a funny one on my list, but it really makes the experience, especially in a country that is overall very touristy. On a trip to Greece, you'll probably hear more German, Spanish, French, Italian, and English than you'll probably hear Greek. And maybe the only Greek people you'll meet are in restaurants that you dine at. Try to set a little time away to meet some Greek people, maybe see if you can get invited to someone's house for some food, that's always a good way to go, or just talk to people in the streets so you can understand a little bit more about the country from their eyes as opposed to from a tour guide. So that's been my everything you need to know before you go to Greece. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, make sure to comment below and make sure to, of course, like and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Efharisto.